find a seat.
You want me to? Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's cool.
Find a seat. Okay, so
Chaz.
I'm just gonna stand.
Oh, but she said have a seat.
I don't know how long this is gonna take.
Stand down.
Yeah, grab a stool and grab a seat.
You just come sit over here.
I'm gonna be sitting on James.
Ricky, stop talking back. Come here.
Okay, so the graph paper that we have is slightly larger than an inch. When I photocopied it, for some reason it didn't give a true photocopy. So the size of the image, it needs to fit inside of the squares. So if you're using something like this, you can cut down the image. Do this one fast. So if I just cut down 2 sides of the image, I can then figure out how can I get this to fit on the graph. So I would probably cut off along here. Copying down the image. Height. There's a couple different ways you can do it. You can cut it down so that it fits, or if I want to, I could just extend that design up here at the top and kind of make up this background area. And I think that's probably what I'll do. So now my image itself is going to fit inside of the graph. Now, if it's a much larger picture, it can go up in the corner. Basically, you do want to have some space around the piece. Gluing it down, and you don't have to glue the heck out of it, just enough to keep it in place. There. So my graph is going to be 4 by 7. Okay. We're going to be using 1.5 inches for our measure. And let me find it. So up here at the front of the room, got your graph paper. The measuring tapes are here. So these are what you're going to use to measure on your paper. Now, just to make life easier, I've created these for you so you don't have to worry about using an actual ruler and all that jazz. So if you line it up with the side here and have it go across the page fairly straight, if you make a mark at every line, that's going to give you your measure. Now, to make sure that you have straight lines, parallel lines, move it down. Again, line it up at the edge. Do a second set of dots. And then using the ruler, line those dots up and just very, very gently and lightly drag your pencil across the paper. So the paper that I have right here that I'm using, this is a 12 by 18. For most images, 12 by 18 is going to be large enough. If somebody has something that does not fit on a 12 by 18 piece, I do have larger paper available, so just let me know if that is the case. Those of you that are planning on doing painting, obviously we do have watercolor paper that is 12 by 18, so you can use the graph method for watercolor. That is available. If you're still wanting to use the canvases, you can also try and figure out a way of measuring out for the canvas. So now I've got these lines drawn out. I'm going to flip my paper this direction, again line it up with the side. I'm going to make a mark at every mark here. Bring my measuring tape down, make my mark, and then I'm going to connect those dots to create the rest of the graph. I did move the rulers so that they are all located next to the glue and the graphs and measuring tapes, so everything is over all together, so you can grab that stuff. If during the process while you're drawing this out and you start to notice, oh, my lines are a little bit dark, the nice thing about a graph is you can always draw it out, get the placement down, and then you can retrace it using a light board. That's also a possibility. Okay, so I now have my small scale graph, I have my large scale graph. Now it's time to go ahead and mark the graph so that it lines up. This upper corner is always left blank. Okay, so now my image is going to fit within this space here. Graphing is one way of making it easier to see where things are supposed to go in correct proportion. Everything you can do is you can rip off this excess. So here's my graph paper. Now for my graph, one more thing that I need to do is I need to add the graph lines to the image itself. You can use a Sharpie, you can use a pencil, it's whatever really works for you. But you're connecting the dots, top and the bottom, and drawing those up and down and side to side. An even further step, this is something that the Art 1 class was using last week, and it seemed to work out really, really well, is using a piece of tracing paper. Let me go grab that so you can see what that does. Sometimes when you're working from an actual photograph, sometimes it gets a little bit overwhelming. So you can use a piece of tracing paper to trace out all of the basic general items that are there. We're not looking for big details, we're just looking for the bigger shapes. When you have that drawn out along with the graph over top, if you place a piece of clean paper underneath, it helps to flatten out the image so it's a little bit easier to see. So these are techniques that you can use. So if I was to use this here, then I would figure out, okay, where does this cross on the graph? And that's how I would lay it out on my drawing. Another thing that you can do is you can take these blocks and you can break them down even more. I had a student in the Art 1 class, she's doing this and she's getting some very, very accurate placements of where things are on the graph. So you can see, okay, this line crosses the graph a little bit above halfway. So when I go to my graph paper drawing, I can make sure that I'm putting that in the correct spot. Graphing like this is how I learned how to draw. This is my wheelhouse. This is where I feel most comfortable working from images and trying to draw them accurately. You can't beat a graph, in my opinion. It's just a really easy way to make sure that you're being truly accurate. Once you have this layout done, you then can go back to the original and make sure that you have all of the other pieces taken care of. Okay? So, real quick, let me switch my technologies here. Does anybody have any questions about that?